this ethic, the ethic of the openness thing is kind of interesting because it conceives of the internet as a giant copying machine. And in fact, I have a very good friend named Kevin Kelly, who was the first editor of Wired magazine. And we have very, very opposing philosophies, but we're still, we respect each other and have a lot of fun together. But anyway, Kevin wrote a piece a while back, which I imagine might become a section in his new book about what technology wants, in which he suggests that the internet should be thought of as a giant copying machine. And to which I said, hey, wait a second, I'm a computer scientist, and I hate that, because it's like the least efficient way to think about the internet. Because it means that you're making way more information than you need, and it's way less organized than it should be, and you're not preserving the provenance. So essentially what happens is, you make a ton of copies, and then like, what's this piece of information? Then you have to go to Google to reverse search it and figure out what the hell it is. And it's stupid, because you should know what it was, because it didn't come from like aliens, it came from people. So there should be provenance for it. But, so there's this weird way that search as a business and the destruction of provenance, or the sort of creation of ignorance where there doesn't need to be, both go hand in hand with the success of copying. So I don't know if it's true, but many people believe that BitTorrent by itself is more than half the bits on the internet. And BitTorrent is mostly movie piracy, but it's all stuff that's kind of so-so, iffy. It's all stuff that would be available elsewhere. And what's wrong with that? Well, there's so many things wrong with it. As I mentioned, it's sort of stupid architecture. It bothers me, because my job as a computer scientist is to make computers efficient, you know, and so when I see a big inefficiency, I'm like, well, why are we doing that with our biggest computer, the internet? But the other thing is, as a green issue, it's really stupid, because, you know, we think of the internet as being this free, ephemeral thing, but actually it's a giant physical device distributed around the world. And no matter how often we try to program data centers, power data centers with wind and hydro or whatever, it still has a huge carbon footprint. And if it's multiple times bigger than it needs to be just to pirate movies, that's got to be stupid, right? It's got to be terribly unethical. And yet there's this sort of idea that, like in Europe, the Green Party and the Pirate Party are lying because they're both supposed to stick it to the man. But the truth is that, in fact, they're working absolutely at odds with each other. And so that bugs me. It just seems like incredibly stupid. So I hope we're meta-stupid, as I was saying. Let me talk about Pirate Bay for a second. Because Pirate Bay is in the news because of the leak of the Afghanistan documents. And so, to me, this is a classic case of the failure of this ideology. Because Pirate Bay, first of all, it uses the term, WikiLeaks, it uses the term wiki to identify with wikiness, but it's not a wiki, it's the fact whenever somebody finds something in common between things that are really different, that's your clue that there's what we call an ideology. Because there's no wikiness there, it's just called wiki because it's part of the same ideology, it's part of a movement of people who are sympathetic to each other. And so, with WikiLeaks, there are some cases where things have been leaked on WikiLeaks that I think the world is better for their being out there. It's not that I think it's universally bad, but here's what I would ask people to bear in mind if they're sympathetic to the side. Let me give you two examples of people who've done exactly the same thing with other ideologies in the last couple of years. One is recently, some government official leaked the names of so-called illegal aliens in Utah to a site that published all their personal data, including enough data that they could really be harassed and harmed. Was that okay? I don't think so. Another example is the publication of personal data about doctors who perform abortions with extras over the ones who are murdered. Is that okay? I really don't think so. And what's the difference? The difference is your ideology. And so when you see somebody who you have a difference with doing the things, and if it feels really bad, then even if you might share some ideology and some sympathies with the point of view of the people doing the thing, you should really reconsider it. And so what we actually have to rediscover is the work that took many centuries to do before the internet, some sort of project of democracy, some way to get along together without it becoming vigilantism or anarchy, and without just power accruing to whoever could manage it. And that's very difficult. So anyway, I want to make a public proposal to WikiLeaks, which is very simple. If something like this comes up again, do the following. Make a public announcement, state your intent, and the intent might be something like this. The intent might be, look, everybody knows we don't like the war. Everybody knows we're not that sympathetic to the U.S. administration or the U.S. military. Fine. But basically, that's not even the most important thing. At core, we have this belief that the more transparency there is, the less people will resort to violence, because they'll see the consequences more. Now, speaking as Jaron for a second, not sure I buy it. I used to believe that the more genuine, symmetrical transparency there was, the better the world might be. I'm not sure it's true, because I think people sort of aren't able to deal with it. A good example is, which is sort of a tragic one. A few months ago, there was the airport security people were testing their new body scanners just among their own guards, and some of the people laughed at the body of one of the guards and then attacked them, and it ended up, they went to jail, this horrible thing. And this was just among trained professionals. Openness really just didn't work because they're human. So maybe, I'm not sure this works, but let's say, I'm going to go back to the voice of what I think WikiLeaks should do. So let's say, whether it's right or not, whether this Lanier character is right or not, whatever, we happen to believe that more transparency will lead to less violence. So here's what we're going to do. We're announcing that we have 100,000 pages of classified U.S. military documents. We have credibility, we've had them before, there's no reason for you to doubt us. We're going to make the following offer. If somebody can leak to us comparable, valuable documents related to America's foes, then we'll do a tit for tat release with comparable increase of transparency on all sides at once. So, if there's anybody, we'll protect your anonymity, we'll never turn you in. If there's anyone in Pakistan or Afghanistan or Saudi Arabia or any place close to the other side who can tell us something that's not public, that's valuable, we'll put out information of comparable value at the same time to increase total transparency and see what happens. That is what they should do. And they might get takers, I don't know. If they don't, it says something. But that's my challenge to WikiLeaks. That would be the ethical way to proceed and to test this hypothesis about openness. Anything shy of that doesn't test it. Oh, am I running out of time already? Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. All right.
Well, we move into new areas even beyond this book, and I do want to return to a couple of the things there that I found so riveting, and that is the...
Can everybody hear?
Okay, how about that? Okay, returning to a couple of subjects from the book that I think are so relevant. No, okay.
How about now?